Hey everyone, my name is David. Welcome to church number 11 of 52 churches in 52 weeks, round 3. If you're new here, one of the purposes of this channel is to bring unity and to bring understanding no matter your faith background as we explore a variety of different churches. And for this particular visit, I have been looking forward to making this drive to this church for quite some time. It's called the Flight 93 Memorial Chapel. It's near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, which is a township of just 197 people. This church serves and pays tribute to the 40 passengers and crew members that were aboard United Airlines Flight 93 on 9/11. So this serves as a spiritual memorial, a place for meditation or prayer, and also as a reunion venue of sorts for those families that were directly impacted. Now, when it came to September 11th, 2001, I think everyone remembers where they were that day. It was just an ordinary Tuesday morning, and within 2 hours, the entire United States and the entire world was flipped upside down in a very short amount of time. Countless lives were lost due to the actions, and the cowardly actions, I should say, of some extremists who hijacked 4 commercial airplanes. 2 were crashed into the World Trade Center in New York City, a 3rd in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and then there was a 4th, United Airlines Flight 93, where the intended target was to hit the nation's capital. When Flight 93 was hijacked, the passengers and crew members were forced to the back. They did have some air phones where they were able to communicate with authorities and family members, and they learned about the first 2 planes crashing in New York City. So with quick action, they voted what to do, and they voted to fight back. So over the skies of Western Pennsylvania, the heroes struggled and fought against their hijackers, and it ended with the plane landing in the countryside in Shanksville. It was about 18 minutes flying time away from Washington, D.C. So due to their actions, they were able to save countless lives, but unfortunately, obviously, lost their own lives as a result. Immediately after the crash, a number of government officials and media descended on this little township in Shanksville. And as a result, there was a local Catholic priest who wanted to do something about this. So he purchased this abandoned Lutheran church building that had been used for farming materials. And within 2 months, he started up his vision to start building this as a way to honor and tribute the 40 freedom fighters that were aboard Flight 93. So I'm going to show you some sights around this chapel to the tune of 40 rings of the bell that I'll explain the significance of in just a moment. But I'll be back with much more in just a moment. I've been struggling how to open this part of the video uh, because this chapel, there was just so much going on with it, and it's unlike any other that I've been a part of. Like, because 9/11, the events from that morning just started to swarm back. As I've been making this video, one thing that I thought would be helpful would be to review the live news coverage as events unfolded that morning. So I was watching everything: CBS News, Fox, ABC, NBC, CNN, and you just hear these legendary anchors like Bryant Gumbel, Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, and Katie Couric, and you see them live on TV, watching the Twin Towers just smoking. And it's like they need to be professional and poised, but you also just can sense this confusion amongst the chaos as they're getting information live as we are watching TV. It's a very surreal experience to revisit. So with the Flight 93 Memorial Chapel, like this building was rebuilt to provide comfort, to provide strength, and just has heart. And it's all through faith. So when I arrived, it was Memorial Day weekend on a Saturday, a little bit before 4 o'clock. I had looked at their website and kind of figured, well, if it's Memorial Day weekend, they're going to have a few volunteers inside. Should be no problem. So when I got there, I learned that both the doors were locked. And I was so upset at myself. It's like, why didn't I just call ahead if I was going to make this big giant drive? Well, I took a few pictures outside since I was there. So there's something called Maggie's Tower. So they had this sign up there that mentioned that this Maggie made a big donation for this church building. And then something called the Thunder Bell. So I guess this bell was cast in 1860 and it weighs like half a ton. I'm about to take a look in the back because there's this Flight 93 monument statue. And all of a sudden, this minivan pulls up next to my car. And, I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe it's another person that wanted to tour this. Maybe she's there for the cemetery across the street. But to my surprise, she actually was a volunteer. And she mentioned that she would be opening it up because there was going to be a tour bus in just a little bit. So the timing lucked out really well for me on this. So she let me in. I kind of explained, I visit all these different churches. And I think inside, like the very first thing that I noticed was just this spirit of patriotism inside for all the heroes on Flight 93, because it was just decorated in angels, in American flags, and mementos that had been left by family members and visitors. Like there was just so many items. I guess one hero, like his family left a rugby ball because he was big into rugby. There were dresses. There was these quilts. I guess one tour bus had visited in the past, and they were like a quilting club or something. So after they visited, they made all these quilts so that they could decorate the Flight 93 Memorial Chapel. There were boots, there were shovels, there was a toy airplane that was owned by the pilot of Flight 93 that his mom gave to them. And also United Airlines themselves donated an identical cart that was used by the heroes, who were able to use it to regain control of the cabin so that they could regain control of the plane. So I think one of the first things that you notice when you walk in through the front door, to the side is this meditation room. And you see 40 biographies of all the passengers and crew members from Flight 93. And all these biographies are written by family members. And you just see the amount of interfaith work going on here, because you see crosses, you see rosaries. There was a picture of Mother Teresa. There's several poems in there. There's scripture. There's a painting of what looks to be of God's hands extended towards these airplanes that crashed from 9/11. So there is just so much heart inside that one meditation room. So to me, like I'm like looking at this, just seeing so much history in just such a small area. It just really just surprised me how much this impacted me from a patriotism standpoint, but more so just that strength and faith. So I talked with a tour guide before the bus arrived, and I learned that the chapel is mostly run by retired teachers. They're all volunteers, and many were actually teaching during 9/11. So when the plane crashed, it was just this loud noise. I guess even with the ceilings on the tiles of the schools kind of lifted and dropped down. A lot figured that maybe the gas station had exploded. So eventually an announcement came over the PA system where recess was canceled. And to a lot of the teachers, this was really confusing because it's a beautiful September day. Like, why? Like, maybe there's a beehive on the playground. That's kind of what they figured. But no, they called an emergency meeting for the teachers. And that's like they only had one TV. It was 2001. Not everyone had a phone to access the internet or do any kind of streaming. So they learned about the significance with the chaos and the confusion that was going on with 9/11, and they made the decision to cancel school. But just due to the parents, doing whatever that they were doing for jobs, they had to be very strategic because they couldn't just, let the kids go home, turn on the TV, and then they're witnessing these global events without an adult to explain what was going on. So some of the students would have to stay with the teachers, and then teachers essentially became babysitters for that day. So my tour guide mentioned she was a first grade teacher. So the one little girl that she was supervising, like now that little girl has grown up to be an adult. And so with this girl now an adult, like her whole 9/11 memory is her teacher allowing her to play and run around the hallways. It's just everyone just has such a different 9/11 story. So one of my questions was, how does a Flight 93 Memorial Chapel operate for a church service, especially on 9/11? She told me that they serve a breakfast and then they hold a public service that is at the time of the crash. I had read online, but I didn't get confirmation from her, that they'll also ring the Thunder Bell 40 times in remembrance of the 40 passengers and crew members that were aboard the flight. So this turns into a big extravaganza with musicians and just the whole town coming towards this chapel. I understand a lot of the families from the victims also attend. Many are from New Jersey because the United Airlines crew members were from that area. So before, this used to be kind of the central gathering venue for all the families, but 10 years to the date of 9/11, they dedicated the Flight 93 National Memorial. So oftentimes some of the presidents will actually attend that. So the families will go to that now in the morning, but then they'll come back. And that's when the volunteers will cook a lunch, and more families will kind of use this little picnic area to kind of bond because, over so many years now, these families have really bonded due to those events from 9/11. So this turns into this really big thing. And I think one thing that she mentioned to me is some of the families had told her that obviously no one wants to lose a loved one. But, if someone was going to lose a loved one, the way that Shanksville and Somerset County and this area in Pennsylvania, just this very small town Americana type of feel to it, this community has essentially wrapped their arms around the families. So these families who've gone through the absolute worst, they have love, they have strength, they have this unity with this town. And as a result, even that has created a very strong bond. So eventually the tour bus arrived and everyone took a seat. I was by far the youngest person there. I even had a gentleman in the back kind of was like, where did you come from? Because I was just so out of place compared to everyone else. So the retired teacher, volunteer slash presenter gave an absolute amazing presentation on how the Flight 93 Memorial Chapel came about. Because you have to remember, like Shanksville, Pennsylvania, Somerset County, this plane crashed in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And so she told the story. So she started with the story of this Catholic priest. His name was Father Al, is the nickname that she was giving him. And Father Al, every day he would drive down this road. And like there was this crossroads where like 5 minutes is where Shanksville is. 5 minutes from here is where another town is. 5 minutes, another town. 5 minutes, another town. And in the middle of this crossroads was this abandoned church building. And he'd drive by this every single day. So when Flight 93 crashed, like he just had this urge to help out as many people as he possibly could. So because that area, it was a crime scene, it was a burial ground, it was a deep crater. And what Father Al wanted to do was to create comfort for all those people that were descending on this area. So he would do everything he could. He would give out water, he would give out sandwiches, he would give out prayers to people. And he noticed this chain link fence that a lot of these people were coming towards, because you had these curiosity seekers, you had family members, you had the media, you had historians taking a look over here. And what he noticed is a lot of these people were leaving mementos, especially that were faith-based. So you had crosses, you had rosaries, you had people who were, writing messages for some of the victims from this crash. He had this urge, this feeling from God that everyone who was coming here, they needed a place. They needed a place of comfort, a place of strength for their faith. So he noticed on this crossroads area, this area that he always drove by, that previous church building structure was for sale, because this church building, it was a Lutheran church from 1901 to 1969. And in 1969, that congregation merged with another Lutheran church, and a farmer bought that building. And as you can imagine, the farmer used this church building for storage. So hay, just farming equipment, what have you. And as a result, obviously the building just went into major disrepair with mice and rats and snakes and spiders and just everything else. A month after 9/11, this building was actually sold. And he was talking with the realtor, and it seemed like everything was lost, but he was praying about it. And the realtor called him back and mentioned the deal had fallen through. Would you like to purchase it? But he didn't have enough funds. So I guess with Father Al, his mom discovered that she had like these first edition Barbies. And mom decided to sell them and was able to gain a substantial amount of money from that, enough money to put a down payment on this church building, so he was able to buy it. So January 2002, he bought it, and he's seeing this just mess of a building, and I guess there was still a little bit of the original altar inside. So I guess he got down on his knees, he prayed about it, and he sung "How Great Thou Art." And in that song, I think it's a Carrie Underwood song. It talks early on in that song about stars. So when they started to go to work on this, that was kind of one of the big themes that they wanted to do. So in the very front with the chapel, you have this mural, and the artist intentionally tried to add in 40 stars that represents the 40 passengers and crew members from Flight 93. So he went to work. This is a small community, so everyone is a little bit nosy. And Father Al kept going to, I think it was a lumber yard, and it was just getting all these building supplies. And again, he still needed a lot of help. And I guess there was, I don't know if she was the owner or the daughter of the owner, I'm not really sure, but her name was Maggie. And when she learned what Father Al was doing, she placed a significant donation to help out with the construction or the rebuild of this church building to make it into what it is today. The goal was to have the chapel ready by September 11th, 2002, exactly 1 year afterwards. And they have pictures from September 3rd, where it looks like, it's still a kind of a mess as they're still kind of getting everything built. But then within just a few days on September 10th, they had it completed. And they were able to dedicate it and open it 1 year after 9/11. So just a little tiny miracle in itself for how this was even to be able to be built into what it stands as today. So a few things that she also mentioned is they try and do 3 different things with the chapel. 1, it needs to be a place of remembrance. 2, it needs to be a place full of prayer. And then 3, the mementos. So one thing that they often do is they'll put out flags to represent all those from Flight 93. So they'll have the Boy Scouts come out and they'll do 38 American flags, 1 German flag, and 1 Japanese flag to pay tribute to all those that were aboard the flight. And then they'll also have 50 American flags just for one nation under God to represent each state. Probably the most interesting thing that she shared, and I've been having some trouble trying to explain the significance of this, but it's called the Light of Freedom. So they had a local blacksmith who specialized in metallic artwork. So he puts this candle underneath what looks to be this metallic crater, but on the very top is like this metallic airplane. So it's almost like this artwork reenactment of Flight 93 that happened on 9/11, but the big point of focus is on the candle. So there's no electricity used for it. You have to light it. And the thought process is we have to continually tend the light of freedom. So she showed how this kind of works and how it rises. And to me, it almost was a little unique way of paying tribute, but also in remembrance of those that paid the ultimate sacrifice from that day. After the presentation, we all ushered out of the chapel, and we took a look at the Flight 93 crew monument. This thing was huge. It's 14 feet high, 16 tons, and it shows the pictures and the names of the crew members from that United Airlines flight. And they're surrounded by 4 granite benches with the names of the passengers. Also towards the side, there is this World Trade Center steel remnant that apparently weighs about 3,000 pounds. So both of these were dedicated and installed in 2006. After the visit, I was kind of wondering how many people have visited the Flight 93 Memorial Chapel since it opened in 2002. And nowadays, it's kind of overshadowed by the nearby Flight 93 National Memorial, which is just a whole lot bigger and much more grandiose, per se, than this chapel, because this chapel kind of represents a grassroots effort to really honor the bravery and the courage of Flight 93 passengers and crew members. One thing that our presenter showed was, again, with the number 40, they always leave 40 chairs inside the chapel, again, to symbolize the crew members and passengers. And obviously the number 40 just has such a profound symbolism and significance in Scripture, because when you think about Noah's Ark and the flood, 40 days, 40 nights. When you think about Moses on Mount Sinai, with the 10 Commandments, 40 days, 40 nights. When Jesus is in the wilderness being tested by Satan, 40 days, 40 nights. But then you also have Jesus being resurrected, and he appears again for 40 days and 40 nights. And I was reading some scholars, some historians who kind of talked about the significance of the number 40 and how it represents a time of trial, a time of tribulation, a time of effort or fasting, but also a time of wandering and wondering. And I think, especially with Jesus' resurrection before his ascension with those 40 days, 40 nights, it kind of shows this new life, this new growth, this change that we can be resurrected. So with the 40 passengers and crew members from Flight 93, like they faced the ultimate trial, the ultimate tribulation, where they had to sacrifice themselves to save so many more souls. And I think what this represents, especially with the number 40, is, even for ourselves, for a nation at that time where we had been dealt a suffocating blow, or even the news anchors didn't know what to make sense as these events were unfolding. Flight 93, like they showed this spirit of bravery, this unity, and this hope for a country that desperately needed it at that time. So for all the Crew 93 monument, and for the chapel, and for the National Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, like this is a reminder of facing unimaginable adversity. And for them to have this human spirit through faith, no matter your faith background, if you're Catholic, Protestant, Latter-day Saint, Jewish, Islam, whatever, good will triumph over evil. And even though that day we may have lost a battle, the good will always prevail. And that is going to be through love, through Jesus Christ.